What's going on, sports fans? StatKing back with another recap of AEW Dark and NWA Powerrr. We're going to jump right into things with AEW Dark. So this week we have 4 matches on AEW Dark, and there's 0 matches that come from the Jericho Cruise. I guess all those matches are over, as far as I'm aware. Maybe we'll get another one down the road, but at least right now we know there are no matches from the Cruise. However, the matches we do have are Rijo versus Shoko, Jimmy Havoc versus Sonny Kiss, Cassandra Golden versus Harshita, and Jurassic Express versus Dark Order. So they lead off with Rijo versus Shoko, and it's a really interesting match because Rijo's kind of put on good matches with pretty much everybody she's been in the ring with, but she kind of shines when she's able to go up against another Joshi, particularly somebody that she knows. And in this situation, she's able to do that. The story here is that Shoko is the only person who has actually pinned Rijo. It was in a tag match, but she does have that win over Rijo. So can Rijo get that win back? And as we find out, she does. It's a non-title match, but it's a very good match. It's about 7 minutes long or so, but it's a nice back and forth. Rijo does pick up the win, and she's flying. She's going to be headed towards a meeting with Nyla Rose sooner rather than later, and we'll see what happens with that. I think that's actually going to be the next match next week. Next, we have Jimmy Havoc versus Sonny Kiss. This is kind of a good match. It's really, I think, the longest match that Sonny Kiss has had on AEW Dark, and it's a really good one because it's got a good story. Jimmy Havoc is starting to have more and more of these heelish aspects. One could argue that they're not really heel aspects, they're just Jimmy Havoc aspects. He just does not care. It's not necessarily that he's being an asshole because he doesn't like the person or that he is a heel. It's more just he doesn't like anybody. He's just angry towards everybody. It's nothing particular towards whoever he's in the ring with. It's just a general sense of displeasure. After all, as the shirt says, I hope you suffer. It doesn't say who is the you. It's a royal you. Everybody should suffer. And in this match, Sonny Kiss does suffer. Sonny Kiss is going to tap out to a submission move, but Sonny Kiss is going to have a really great showing. I'm really hoping that they're able to continue to develop him and showcase what he can do. He has a really, I was just going to say athletic background, and they do bring that up in commentary, talking about yoga, talking about gymnastics, talking about how flexible he is and the ability to move, and that's really something that's kind of nice to see. It's a little different from the norm. So I like that how they've presented that thus far. I like that they're giving Sonny Kiss more time and more opportunities on Dark. That's something that Dark's there for, and it's something I've talked about previously about how they need to use this time on Dark to develop stars. We do kind of know who Jimmy Havoc is. If you're a big wrestling fan, you know who Jimmy Havoc is. If you're more of a developing wrestling fan, a casual, so to speak, you are been learning who Jimmy Havoc is as AEW has gone on over the past year or so. Therefore, having Havoc in the ring with somebody like Sonny Kiss, it's good for both of them. So next we have Harshita versus Cassandra Golden. Cassandra Golden's making her AEW debut. Harshita is very well known in the halls of the AEW roster. And Harshita shows up with a really strong match and gets a win over Cassandra Golden. Not too much to write home about this match. It's shorter than the Rijo Shoko match, but it serves its purpose of getting Shida another win to stack wins as we look forward to seeing who wins in Rijo versus Nyla Rose. One thing before I forget is they did have a promo after the Jimmy Havoc match with Luther. So if you remember, Luther is the kind of death match, hardcore match person who was accompanying the rest of the Nightmare Collective to the ring all this time. And after the Nightmare Collective has seemingly broken up, I think, it looks as though they're keeping Luther around for other uses. And one of those uses is to pair him either with or against Jimmy Havoc. I think that's a really smart move on their part. You're giving Jimmy Havoc somebody he can work with that's a fellow deathmatch person, and he can showcase his hardcore style. So moving to the main event of Dark, it's Jurassic Express versus Dark Order. No Luchasaurus this time. It's Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And they are up against the Dark Order, who also have Reynolds and King. I think King's the... Alex Silver and John Reynolds. I don't know why King popped into my head. But they are ringside. Good match. Good main event. I kind of am saying this multiple times. We kind of know what we're getting with Jurassic Express. Especially once you know who is the two who are going to be in the tag match. If it's all three, there's a little bit more of a variety because of who's going to tag in and out. But when it's just two, whether it's Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus or Jungle Boy and Marco, you kind of know who you're getting. You know who's in what role. And they put on a great match. There's really nothing to complain about here. And it's a great overall episode of Dark that kind of pushes storylines forward, is developing new storylines with Jimmy Havoc and Luther, and that's good to see. One thing I will say is I don't think we've seen Marco Stunt with Luchasaurus. Usually Jack Perry, Jungle Boy is one of the other persons in tagging in the team. I don't think we've seen Marco and Luchasaurus by themselves. That would kind of just be interesting. It's a little redundant because you have that, big man, little man, Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy dynamic already. Is it really that valuable to go even smaller? I don't know. Maybe if you're trying to help get Luchasaurus more over as the big man. Then maybe it does have some value. We'll see how that we'll see if they ever make that pairing in the future. But a pairing that we always deal with is another episode of NWA Powerrr. So this episode of Powerrr starts off with the Bouncers versus the Dawsons. Now last week, if you remember, there was a really strong promo from Eddie Kingston talking about Homicide, when he's talking about what Pope was saying about Homicide, and he says that he brought help in the form of the Bouncers. So now this week, we're getting the Bouncers versus Pope's guys, the Dawsons. So a really good tag match. It's kind of interesting because both teams are the classic big man role, going back to what we were just speaking about when it comes to Luchasaurus. Usually when you have a team, when you have a big man team, they have a certain dynamic. There's a certain story, natural story that's being told. David versus Goliath, so to speak, or some, just maybe not a David in the sense of super small, but like, or small, but they're always going to be small in comparison to the big man team. And now in this situation, we have two big man teams facing each other. And the story here is who is bigger, in essence. Who is larger? Who dominates the ring more? And the Bouncers do have a natural size advantage over the Dawsons, and so the Dawsons are kind of relegated to that small man role in a sense. But they're able to bring power to the small man role, which is something that you don't always see. A lot of times when you have a small team versus a bigger team, the small team's relying on speed. Well, in this situation, they're trying to increase their speed, but also they're trying to hit as hard as they can. However, it's not good enough, and the Bouncers pick up the win over the Dawsons. And after that, we see a nice little Eddie Kingston pointing at Pope over there from across the ring saying, I got you. I got one over you. After everything you've been saying about Homicide and bringing down my mentor, bringing down my friend, now I got one over you. Let's see where they go with this. It's kind of a really interesting, underrated story that's going on. Now, one thing that was kind of cool about this is that the entire time this match is going on, we have Eli Drake and James Storm, our tag team champions, on commentary. Well, they one of them, because as Eli said, James has been drinking, so they don't want him on the mic. But after the match, with the Crockett Cup sitting right there by the announce table, Both the bouncers and James Storm proceed to pour their beers into the Crockett Cup and drink from it. Eli Drake has a protein shaker of water, and he opts to drink from that instead. So, moving onwards, we have a promo from Tom Latimer with Camille. It's kind of a basic, straightforward promo talking about how he's going to be facing Tim Storm tonight. He's looking forward to the match. He gets to beat down the old man. They also talk about how in the main event we're going to be having Royce Isaacs teaming with Nick Aldous versus the Rock and Roll Express, Rock and Roll's Forever. And Tom Latimer is saying, you know, we're looking for those tag titles as well. So they will probably be doing something interesting at the Crockett Cup, whether they're in a tag match or whether they're in the tournament itself. I'm thinking I think last year it was to determine who would be the title holders, and Wildcards, I think, won it. And that's why they were the title holders going into NWA Powerrr when it came back on TV. No, I'm mistaken. It was Nolan Enterprises, I think it was, who picked up the belts. But now I think the winner of the cup will face the champion. So maybe it'll be Latimer and Isaacs trying to battle their way through the rankings of the Crockett Cup. Either way, Tim Storm comes out. We have this match. Tom Latimer is able to pull one out over the old wily veteran of Tim Storm. It's a really good match. I liked it. I'm liking more and more the work that Tim Storm is doing. He's putting over the younger talent. He's getting eyes on them, right? So he's done that now with Ricky Starks. He's doing that now with Tom Latimer. He's making eyes focus on his opponents. I'm now more interested in Tom Latimer actually as a single star than I was before this. I mean, now I know he used to be Bram, and I know he used to be a bit of a single star, but you know, now I'm interested to see where they go with this, because Royce Isaacs we've seen kind of be in his own little bit of a singles storyline when it comes to him and Saul Renaro. More on that later, but I'm interested to see where they go with this Tom Latimer kind of story that they're building of him kind of breaking out as a bit of a single star, but still having an interest in the tag titles. It's important. You don't always see that with tag teams being able to coexist as both tag team stars and as single stars. It's kind of an interesting thing. Let's see how long they can make that last, whether or not that's going to be part of how Strictly Business breaks up down the road. Who knows? But it's something to always have in the back of your mind, because it's one of those things where, you know, sometimes people say certain wrestling storylines are predictable, right? And we kind of think, oh well, yeah, it kind of is. Like last year, you kind of felt, hey, Becky's gonna win the Rumble. Hey, Seth's gonna win the Rumble. Hey, they should also win at Mania, right? You have those, or if you know, like you may have felt very convinced that Naito was supposed to win both belts at Wrestle Kingdom, but Gato does a very good job of building storylines for all the people. So it made sense if Jay White had won. It would have made sense if Okada had won. It would have made sense if Kota Ibushi had won, right? So when they're doing things like this with the booking of Latimer and Isaacs as singles, having single storylines, also having tag team work, it plants those seeds. It builds that idea up so that if something happens down the road, you can say, I see the seeds. You know, I see how they were laying this foundation. Maybe it will be predictable. Maybe it won't be predictable. But they're sowing seeds now. Definitely, I think, for something down the road. After the match, after Tim Storm loses, the guy dressed up as Mama Storm comes out. Tim Storm stares him down. The crowd wants him to beat up Mama Storm, or fake Mama Storm. He refuses. After this, there is a promo from Trevor Murdoch about Aaron Stevens, talking about how Stevens keeps running from him. He wants a rematch. He thinks that he should be the champion. Decent looking promo. After this, there is a recap of ROH Free Enterprise. So at ROH Free Enterprise, the main event was Marty Scurll and PCO versus Rush and Aldous. So your NWA World Champion with Rush and the Ring of Honor World Champion PCO with Marty in a tag team match. It's still kind of weird that PCO, and maybe that's just like my personal thing. It just feels weird to me that Marty Scurll is supposed to be the boss of Villain Enterprises, but his employee has the world title. It feels weird, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's the head of the stable is the guy. Maybe going back to the Batista thumbs down to Triple H. But I don't know, that's just my thing. Anyway, they recap that after that match, Marty says that he will cut a check for $500,000 to Nick Aldis for the title match, because Nick Aldis was talking about how the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship represents money and represents about $500,000 of business for the NWA. I would think it's more than that, or maybe not think. Let me not say that. I would hope it's more than $500,000 worth of business if you consider what a corporate tax rates are in the United States. It's about 36%. Even before you can do any kind of fun IRS loopholes. But I mean, either way, $500,000 for the most prestigious belt that the company has, arguably in wrestling, or maybe not in wrestling. That's probably the IWGP Heavyweight title, or maybe the WWE title, but one of the most prestigious belts in wrestling, definitely the most prestigious in the history of wrestling. I would hope that it's more than $500,000. It equivocates to more than $500,000 worth of business. But after this, they have a promo from Mooney about Circle Squared. It's going to be kind of like a, I don't know if you remember the old TNA Boot Camp and Gut Check programs, but it's going to be kind of a proving ground thing, series for the future, for future stars, for futures of the company. I kind of like that. I'm kind of interested to see who they signed, who they're going to be bringing in as they try to expand NWA Powerrr. That should always be the goal of any company, or any wrestling, not just any wrestling company, but any company, to expand, to be as big as you can be, or as big as is feasible. You got to know your limitations, but you got to understand that you want to continue to grow. So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in for this Circle Squared show. All right. Our next match is Ricky Starks versus Matt Cross. TV title match. Title is on the line. 6:05 is the time limit. Matt Cross has this match by virtue of beating Caleb Conley last week. This match goes to a time limit draw. Good match. Very similar to me to the Hard Times pay-per-view match. So those two put on a great match then. They put on a great match now. I like that it went to a time limit draw, because Ricky Starks is kind of using what he has to his advantage now. For the first time, he had to beat Matt Cross. Now he simply has to outlast him. And he has, what now? I think 2 down. He beat Ziggy Dice. Now time limit draw for the belt, for that lucky 7. Good match, though. Matt Cross kind of shoots himself in the foot by playing to the crowd at the end. I think he hits, I forget what exactly he hit, but I think if he had gone for the cover of them, he gets the pin. Or at least that's the story that they were telling. Instead, he grabs the ropes and looks out to the crowd to play to the crowd and maybe get out of the ring, get onto the top, jump off, and runs out of time. That worked, though. I think it was a good move. The only thing that I think would have been better would be if he had gone for the pin and Ricky Starks had kicked out just at that last second. Because then Matt Cross has kind of a, hey, you know, I deserve a rematch down the line. Maybe this is the end of Matt Cross's time in NWA, so they don't want to, set those seeds. But either way, good match. And after this, Zicky Dice comes out, cuts a promo. I think they're going to gear towards a rematch between the two of them, maybe as early as, well, not next week, because they said Circle Squared is going to be replacing Powerrr next week, but maybe the week after that. So now we have a Marty Bell promo, and Allison Kay comes out to respond to the promo because Marty Bell's talking about Allison Kay. But to me, it was kind of like, you know, not generic, but like kind of a general promo. But what I really liked about it was Allison Kay comes out and says, you're drinking, Melina is like Jim Jones and you're drinking the Kool-Aid. This is hilarious to me. It's not, if you don't know any better and you don't know a lot of history or anything like that, you may think that this is like a weird reference of that doesn't make any sense to Jim Jones from Harlem, the rapper from Dipset. Shout out to going with drunk guy JJ, who's always trying to destroy his liver watching Monday Night Raw every week. He is a huge Dipset fan, but it is not. It is actually a reference to a cult leader who had a cult. Obviously, that's what a cult leader has. But he had many people under his sway, and in order to be part of a cult, you got to kind of drink the Kool-Aid, right? And that's what Melina has done with Marty Bell. Oh, case in point. Going back to about the concept of the leader of the stable having the world title or being in the world title hunt. You notice that Melina is now kind of targeting Thunder Rosa. Like, she's now saying, "Hey, you got to give me that belt. I'm supposed to be the boss of this outfit, right?" Like, that's Hunter going, "Hey, Randy, give me the belt." like what are you doing? What are you doing thinking you're the world heavyweight champion? Or looking at Batista saying, "What do you think you're doing challenging me?" Like, go talk to JBL with the WWE title, right? Marty Scurll seems to be perfectly fine with PCO having the belts. Now, okay, I'll be fair. I don't watch Ring of Honor. Definitely not enough to know what exactly is going on. In the sense of, I don't know whether or not Marty said something and Marty was like, "This is why I'm okay with it, and these are my reasonings." All I know is that it seems weird to me. But speaking of Melina, she now goes over Tasha Steelz. Quick match, kind of just another one of those matches to say, hey, Melina still has it. She can still move in the ring. She can still hit her finishers, etc., etc. Kind of interesting that she was supposed to, or at least she said that she had spoken with NWA management and she was going to face the winner of her next match would be facing the winner of Allison Kay and Thunder Rosa. But we find out from commentary that the NWA declined to give her the match because she had not had many matches since she had come to the NWA. She'd only had the one, and so now she's having another. And so that's the reason. That's kind of the reasoning for this match, the reason for it existing. So she beats Tasha Steelz, and then she says in a quick post-match promo that she's going to be facing Allison Kay. And when asked who's sanctioning this match, she's saying, "I'm sanctioning it. I'm Melina, and I sanction it." Now, moving to our main event. Our main event is Nick Aldis and Royce Isaacs versus the Rock and Roll Express. Good match. Very, very back and forth match. Rock and Roll Express know what they're doing. The Strictly Business are good at playing the heels. They are going to win through some heelish cheating. But kind of the story here is what's going on between Royce and May Valentine. So, before the match starts, May Valentine comes down from the bleachers to the front row floor area with Saul Renaro, who's got his arm in a cast. If you remember, there seems to be some tension here. May Valentine is spending some time with Saul Renaro. She was talking to him and everything with last week during Royce's match. Royce wasn't a fan of it, and now they're kind of playing on that storyline and playing on that thread, and they're saying that the two of them are just friends, or she is saying that they are just friends, but they're sitting together ringside to watch this match. Royce is going to be distracted throughout this match, and I think this is something, like I said before, with the Latimer and Tim Storm kind of storyline, or at least I don't know, it is kind of a Latimer Tim Storm storyline, because that fake Mama Storm always comes out with Latimer. We kind of see now there's something going on here between Royce and Saul Renaro. That's kind of more of the storyline that we're being told than Nick Aldis and Marty Scurll. That's not that much important in this match, because Rock and Roll Express don't really have a connection to Marty Scurll, and Nick Aldis is there just for a TV main event, so to speak. So it's more about Royce and Saul Renaro, which is kind of cool, because they're giving these two guys some spotlight time. So I want to see how they build with that. Next week we won't have an NWA Powerrr. We'll have Circled Squared. I'll take a look at that, Circle Squared, and I'll include that as part of the review. But until next time, when we have our next episode of Dark and our next episode of Circle Squared / Powerrr, I will bid you guys goodbye. Hope all is well with you, and I'll see you guys next time.